You may remember a game that took the internet by storm in the spring of 2023, commonly referred to as the Call of Duty killer. This game, XDefiant, gained a sudden surge of popularity during its closed beta in April 2023. It was the kind of FPS game we were missing, fixing a lot of the mistakes other franchises had made. XDefiant seemed to be in great position to have a big launch, with the developers saying the game would be out in summer 2023. That date was then pushed back to October 2023, but now it's 2024 and we haven't gotten a lot of new information. What happened to XDefiant? XDefiant has had a surprisingly complicated history throughout its development. It was first revealed by Ubisoft all the way back in July 2021. At the time, the game was actually a part of the Tom Clancy franchise, being titled Tom Clancy's XDefiant. The initial reveal trailer was not received well at all. The game looked generic, and many Tom Clancy fans were struggling to see how the game even had anything to do with that branding, and felt it was just a cash grab. It's actually pretty crazy looking back and seeing just how upset people were at this game's reveal. The comments are a Ubisoft roast session, and the trailer has 35,000 dislikes. It's clear Ubisoft and the development team took this feedback seriously, as they went dark for a bit before coming back in 2022 with a rebrand. The game was no longer part of the Tom Clancy universe and would instead just be titled XDefiant. Despite this, it would still feature characters from Tom Clancy, as the game would be a mashup of Ubisoft's franchises. This move gave the game more of an understandable identity and let it stand more on its own, instead of being immediately judged as a Tom Clancy game. But it wasn't until its full official re-reveal in 2023 that the hype would really get going. In April 2023, new trailers were released alongside the announcement that there would be a closed beta from April 13th until April 23rd. There were a few different ways to get into this closed beta, with the primary one being Twitch drops. If a viewer on Twitch watched a streamer playing XDefiant for 30 minutes, they could get their code into the closed beta. This was a genius move by Ubisoft. For those unaware of Twitch drops, they are essentially infinite money glitches for streamers. Anytime a game has Twitch drops, streamers will see their numbers skyrocket. Tons of viewers flood in so they can get whatever items or code that they're wanting. These Twitch drops made thousands of streamers play XDefiant so they could cash in on these extra viewers. But the good news was, those streamers were actually really enjoying the game in the process, and the viewers were liking what they were seeing as well. As more and more players started getting into the closed beta, the game started blowing up across social media. Suddenly, a game that was pretty much unknown just a few weeks ago was the most trending FPS game in the world. There were times when XDefiant was hitting peaks of 50,000 total viewers on Twitch, surpassing some of the more established FPS games such as Call of Duty. That viewership statistic, combined with XDefiant's many similarities to COD, started its common nickname, the Call of Duty killer. XDefiant's closed beta really did come at the perfect time. It was a low point for Call of Duty, as players were not interested in playing Modern Warfare 2 or Warzone 2. In the midst of one of Call of Duty's lowest points, a new competitor had joined the market. XDefiant wasn't there to reinvent the wheel, they simply listened to what players had been asking for. Due to the horrific state of COD, XDefiant was able to use very simple features as selling points. Something as basic as map voting was able to gain them support. Basically, every major mistake COD had made was an immediate bonus for XDefiant. The state of COD and the FPS genre in general, combined with the huge Twitch drops campaign, made XDefiant an immediate hit. By April 22nd, 9 days since the beta started, they had reached 1 million total players. It really was the perfect storm. So then what happened? The game was set to launch at some point in summer 2023. There was never a definitive date, but the messaging seemed to indicate we would be playing the full game sooner rather than later. And man, I was so excited. As a lifelong Call of Duty player, all I wanted is to go back to the glory days of that franchise, and playing XDefiant brought me that feeling. The closed beta was literally the only game I wanted to play for 2 weeks while it was live. I mean, it pretty much was the only game I played in that time. So needless to say, I was a believer in XDefiant. I remember telling all my friends about this game and how I thought it was going to be the next big thing, and I thought summer was the perfect time to release the game. It's like that dead period for Call of Duty where we're kind of over the current game, but we haven't quite made it to the release of the next one yet. So this was the exact time XDefiant could slip in and try to take some players. But as summer crept along, we weren't hearing much. There was an open beta in June, but it was short, lasting from June 21st until just June 23rd. Regardless, many saw this as a kind of final test before launch, but that proved not to be the case. The months kept passing by, and suddenly we were getting close to the end of August without XDefiant. But finally we got a small update from executive producer Mark Rubin. You're gonna hear his name a lot over the rest of this video, as he is essentially the face of XDefiant, and he's very open and honest on Twitter about the status of the game. Mark gave us an update on August 23rd telling us that the game was still on track and was in submission while they fixed some bugs. This update seemed to imply that while the game was not going to be totally on time, the wait shouldn't be too long. And hey, summer technically doesn't end until September, so they could still hit their target release date. But on September 20th, Mark gave us another update. The game was in a final submission process, and this would take some time. There was a chance that the game would not be approved for release, and this would make it impossible to hit their target date. In that case, the game would now hopefully release in October. And this was the point when I started to get kind of worried about XDefiant. October would be a horrible time to release the game. Call of Duty was at the point in its yearly cycle where fans get really excited and invested in the upcoming game, which typically comes at the beginning of November. And with Modern Warfare 3, Activision had done some smart things to get fans interested. They were playing on nostalgia by bringing back all of the maps from the original Modern Warfare 2. They would also be restoring many of the features fans had clamored for, such as map voting and red dots. What this meant was that Modern Warfare 3 had, for the moment, taken the spotlight off XDefiant. Not to mention, October is an extremely busy time for games in general, and 2023 was even crazier than normal. Launching the game at this time would be a death sentence. Well, the game was not launched at that time, as on October 9th, Mark gave another update. During a quick public service test that had occurred on September 28th, they had identified new issues that needed to be fixed before launch. I do quickly want to say, I am heavily paraphrasing Mark's statements. I would strongly recommend pausing the video and reading these, as they are an extremely honest and interesting look into game development. It's rare to see a AAA game have this level of honest communication. Regardless of that, none of these updates were necessarily good news, and that continued with another update on November 1st. It was here that Mark had essentially stated the game was indefinitely delayed, no longer wanting to put any type of release date or release window out there. They had found issues with the game's latency and the social features that were slowing development. Yet another update came on December 5th where Mark essentially just stated that they were continuing to progress on these issues. They wanted to take their time to perfect the game as much as possible. And while I obviously respect and appreciate that, the hype they had gained over the summer was so far gone at this point. Regardless, we finally got a somewhat positive update on January 2nd. Mark said they had fixed the latency issues and had implemented their new party system. While there was still no release window given, it was the first update that sounded positive in its tone, which was nice to see. And that's where we stand for now. XDefiant is continuing on in development, and I hope we can play it again soon. It was disappointing to see the game get delayed for this long, especially because I honestly felt the game could have been released close to its current state all the way back in the closed beta. It was obviously far from perfect, but I genuinely think it was ready to play. I think it would have been perfectly suitable to release it as an early access game in that state. So with that in mind, it's been very frustrating to have to wait this long. At the same time though, I think this can help the game in the long run. Releasing in that October window would have been disastrous. Assuming the game can launch at some point before or during summer 2024, it will be in a much better place. Yes, most of the summer 2023 launch hype is long gone, but I am confident that social media will help the game rekindle that audience whenever it does finally release. I think the finals is a great example of a blueprint that XDefiant can follow for success. The Call of Duty killer will not actually kill Call of Duty, we all know that, but I do believe it can compete with Call of Duty. I am extremely excited to see a genuinely high quality, high budget competitor hit the market. At the very least, it will force Call of Duty to make the positive changes they need to make. For now, we will just have to continue waiting for XDefiant.